Hey everybody, today what we've got for you is the ultimate look at how club path and face angle affect the golf ball's flight. Now, if you've done any kind of research online about this subject, you understand that it's a pretty complicated topic. One reason this has become a complicated topic is because recently our understanding of the ball flight laws have changed with the onset of launch monitors like TrackMan and FlightScope. We now have a much better understanding of why the golf ball starts on a particular line and what makes it curve to the left or right based on these launch monitor numbers. So my goal for you today is to simplify this so that you can go out to the driving range and get a better understanding of what you're doing in the golf swing and how it's affecting your ball flight. Most of you don't have access to a TrackMan system, so I'm not going to dive deep into the particular numbers and the specific angles that affect the ball flight. What I want is for you to be able to analyze this on your own at the driving range using a very simple setup. So what I'm going to do in this video is put some graphics on the screen that are going to help you better understand how club path and face angle affect the starting line of the golf ball and how the golf ball curves. Now there's a lot of factors that affect how the golf ball flies, but these two, club path and face angle, are the most influential in terms of where the golf ball starts, what line it starts on, and how it curves, whether to the left or the right, and how much. So the first graphic that we're going to look at is in relation to club face angle. And I think most golfers have a pretty good understanding of this. When the golf club comes into contact with the golf ball, it could be pointed in three different directions of varying amounts. So the number one direction would be square, where the club face is pointed directly at your target. It could be closed, which means it's pointed to the left of your target, or it could be open, which means that it's pointed to the right of your target. And of course, this is for a right-handed golfer. For a left-handed golfer, would be opposite. The next graphic that we're going to put on the screen is related to the club path. Now I know we've all heard of club path, but it's a little more complicated than face angle, and you might not have a very good understanding of it. So I've simplified this down into straight lines. The golf club actually moves on a slight arc through impact, but for the sake of this video and simplicity, we're just going to use straight lines. So as you can see from the graphic, the golf club can travel on three different paths. The first path would be on your target line, so a straight path. The second path that it could travel on would be an in to out path, meaning that it comes from the inside of your target line to the outside of your target line as it travels through the golf ball. And then the third would be an out to in swing. So it starts on the outside of your target line and goes across the golf ball to the inside of your target line. So these two factors, club face angle and club path, are the two biggest influencers of where the golf ball starts and where it curves to. The next graphic that I'm going to put on the screen breaks down these two factors and shows how they influence the flight of the golf ball. So the first line you'll see is going to be the red line, which is going to represent the face angle of our golf club. And what the face angle affects is the starting line of the golf ball. So simply put, if the face angle is pointed to the left of your target, the golf ball is going to start to the left of your target. If the face angle is pointed to the right of your target, your golf ball will start to the right of your target. And if your face angle is pointed at your target, the golf ball should start at your target. The next line we're looking at is the blue line, which represents the club path. Now the club path is what is going to influence the curvature of your golf ball. So the next part of the graphic shows how the intersection of these two lines affects the direction of the curvature. In the first example, the blue line or the club's path is above the red line or the face angle, and in this instance the golf ball would curve to the left. In the second example, the red line and the blue line match each other exactly, meaning that there will not be any curve to the golf ball. And in the third example, the red line, the face angle, is above the blue line, the club path, meaning that the golf ball will curve to the right. Now what you'll notice in all three of these examples is that I have no target line. That's because the golf ball does not care about your target. All it cares about is the club path and the face angle and the relation between those two. So I'm going to leave this graphic on the screen, and then I'm going to pull up some examples of different club paths and different face angles, and we're going to see how that's going to affect the ball flight. So before we get into these examples, a little note about the club face angle and where the golf ball starts. When looking at detailed TrackMan data, the club face angle affects about 85% of the ball's starting line. But for simplicity's sake, in these examples, we're basically going to assume that the club face angle influences 100% of the starting line. So when we see an example of a club face squarely pointed at the target line, we're going to assume that the golf ball started at the target line, even though in reality it probably started slightly right or slightly left of the target line based on your club path. But we want to take a complicated subject and try to keep it as simple as possible. So let's look at the examples. So in the first example, we've got a square club face that's pointed at the target, and we've got a path that is inside to out, and the result is going to be a golf ball that starts on target and then curves to the left because the red line is below the blue line. In the second example, again, we've got an inside to out path, but now we've got a closed club face. So because the red line is below the blue line, we are going to get another curvature to the left, but our ball is also going to start left. This is a good example of a duck hook, one that starts left and keeps going left. Now we've got that same club path, an inside to out club path, but we've got an open club face that matches our club path. So this would result in no curvature at all, but the ball would start right and stay to the right. In this next example, we've still got that in to out club path, and we've got a red line that is to the right of our target. But because the red line is still below the blue line, we're going to get curvature to the left, but we're going to get a ball that starts out to the right of our target. So this is a great example of that perfect draw that starts just right of your target and then curves back to your target. In the next example, we've got the same club face angle that's pointed to the right of the target, but our path has changed. Now we're coming outside to in, and now the red line is above the blue line, meaning that we're going to get curvature to the right. So now we've got a ball that starts right of our target and curves to the right. And you can see based on these last two examples that just by changing the path, we get a dramatically different golf shot, even though our club face angle was the same. And then in the last example, we've got a club path that is perfect straight down the line, and we've got a club face that is pointed to the right. So just like the last shot, but not as dramatic, the golf ball is going to start to the right, and because the red line is above the blue line, it's going to curve to the right. So again, to reiterate something I said earlier in the video, the golf ball doesn't care about your target line. All it cares about is your club path and your face angle. So as you can see, the golf ball is going to go where the face angle is pointed, and it's going to curve based on where that club path is in relation to the face angle. It doesn't have anything to do with what your target line is. So hopefully the first part of the video gave you a basic understanding of club path, face angle, and how that affects the flight of the golf ball. Now that you have that information, you need to determine what you're doing in your own golf swing in terms of face angle and club path and how it's affecting your ball flight. I've got a simple setup for you that you can use on the driving range to determine these two factors. So now what we're going to look at are some actual golf shots with different ball flights, and we're going to try to determine what the face angle was and what the club path was. So the method that I used was I chose a target out on the driving range, and I put a golf ball about 10 yards in front of me on that target line so that I could see exactly where my golf ball starts in relation to the golf ball that's on the ground. So in this first swing you see here, we've got the golf ball starting basically directly on the target line with just a slight curve to the right, which tells me that I had a square club face and that my path was just ever so slightly outside to in to create that slight curve to the right. In the second swing, you see a ball that starts to the right of my target and basically stays on a straight line the entire way with no curvature. What that tells me is that the club face was slightly open at impact and that the path was inside to out and matched that club face angle. In this next swing, what we can see is a golf ball that starts left of my target and then curves back to the right of my target. So what this is showing is that I had a closed club face at impact that caused the ball to start to the left of my target, but I had an outside to in club path that caused the ball to curve back to the right of my target. So in this next swing, we see a big duck hook. We've got a ball that starts left of our target and curves to the left of our target. So we've got the same face angle as the last swing, left of our target, but now we've got a big inside to out path that caused that ball to curve to the left. Kind of a double mistake that makes a really bad duck hook shot. So on this next swing, what you'll notice is that the ball started off to the left again, meaning that our club face was closed at impact, but now we've got a big curvature to the right, meaning that we've changed our path. Now we've got an outside to in club path, and it's causing our ball to curve to the right, compared to the previous swing, which was an inside to out path that caused our ball to curve to the left. So you can see, based on these last two swings, that even though you had the same club face angle, the club path dramatically changed the curvature of the ball. So this next swing, we see a big push to the right. Not much curvature, it stayed straight, but it started out way right of our target, which means we had an open club face at impact pointed to the right of our target, but our swing path matched that club face angle, meaning it was inside to out, so it didn't have any curvature, it was just a big straight push to the right. So this next swing is definitely a ball flight that most of us desire, and that's a slight draw to the left back to our target. So as we can see, the golf ball started to the right of our target and then curved back to the left, meaning that we had an open club face at impact, but we had an inside to out swing that caused that ball to curve back to the left. So in this last swing, what we've got is a golf ball that starts to the left of our target and stays on a straight line to the left of our target. So we had no curvature, meaning that the club face angle was closed at impact, and the path of the club matched that face angle, was outside to in, so it didn't create any kind of curve to the golf ball. So the last thing I want to do in this video is compare a couple of these swings to each other and try to determine why the ball flight was so dramatically different. So the first two examples that I want to compare are the big extremes, the duck hook to the left and the big slice to the right. Now, as you can see, the starting line of both of these golf balls were almost identical to the left of our target. But the curvature of the golf ball was obviously dramatically different. Why did these curve in different directions? As you can see, the line that the club produced on the backswing and downswing are dramatically different. On the duck hook, you've got a line that's very shallow or low to the ground, meaning that the club was coming from a very inside to out path, which created that curvature to the left. And to contrast that, on the slice swing, you've got a line that's very upright, meaning that the club traveled on an outside to in path through impact and created that big curvature to the right. So in this example, the difference between curving way left and curving way right had nothing to do with the club face, but everything to do with the club path. An improvement in club path here, a slightly outside to in path, would create a golf ball that starts just slightly left of your target and curves back to your target. But because we had extreme inside to out and outside to in paths on both of these swings, it created some really bad curvatures to our golf ball left and right. I think where golfers could get in trouble here is hitting a big shot to the right and assuming that the club face must be wide open, when in reality the club face was closed at impact and it was your path that was creating the problem. So we try to fix a big slice by closing the club face more, and what that ends up doing is making your path even worse because you're trying to get that golf ball back to the target, so it makes an even more extreme outside to in path and creates a more extreme slice. That's why understanding the relationship between club face angle and club path is so important when trying to determine how to fix your swing and how to affect your ball flight. The next comparison that we're going to look at is the big right shot that started to the right of our target and stayed to the right of our target with no curvature, and then the perfect draw that we all desire, the one that started to the right of our target and drew back to our target. Now, as you can see in these two examples, the swing path was actually very similar. You can see the blue line and the yellow line on my backswing and downswing were actually almost the same, meaning that the club path was inside to out on both of those swings. But the difference in these two swings is the club face angle. In the big push to the right, the club face was wide open, meaning that the ball started right, and because we have that inside to out swing, it stayed to the right. It matched the face angle. But in the perfect draw, our club face was a little more square to the target, which with that inside to out swing caused the ball to curve back to our target even though it started slightly right of our target. So in this example, the club path is actually pretty good, but it's our club angle that caused that shot to the far right. So I'm hoping I didn't overwhelm you with information. I tried to keep this as simple as possible, even though it is a pretty complicated topic. But what I suggest you do is go out to the driving range and get a setup like I did with a golf ball out in front so that you can see the starting line of your golf ball, and just hit shots and try to observe where does that golf ball start and where does it curve? What are your tendencies? And then try to use that information to determine what was the club face angle and what was the path. Remember, club face angle determines where the ball starts and path determines where the ball curves. So if you're seeing a lot of golf balls that start to the left of your target and curves way to the right of your target, you've got a club face angle that is to the left or closed, and you've got a club path that is outside to in that's creating that slice. So once you determine what your predominant club face angle and club path are, you can look for ways to try to improve on those issues. So I know this was a lot of information. I appreciate you watching this video. Go out to the driving range and give this a try. I hope it helps.